Welcome and thanks for looking in. This is my second day of recording these videos. I recorded the first 3 all in one day, the Cherry Bullet unboxings, and it's 3 days later now, and I decided to go way back to the beginning of my collecting of records. This is a stack of 45 RPM singles, 7-inch, and these were the first records that I owned. In fact, the first several records on top of the stack were owned by my sister, and I inherited them. My sister Linda was 11 years older than me, is 11 years older than me, and growing up, I always loved listening to her music, and she instilled in me a lifelong love of music and also of buying music and owning it on records and then on all of the other formats that followed. Okay, so I'm going to go through these records and talk about them, starting with the Beatles. I saw her standing there. This is the oldest record in the whole pile. This song came out in late 63, early 64. And I believe that this was given to her by her high school boyfriend, because here it says Dave. Now in 63 and 64, they both would have been about, I think, 8 years old, so if he did give it to her, it was sometime after that, because they dated when they were in high school in the early 70s. But this is the oldest one that's in here, backed with I Want to Hold Your Hand. I'm going to move the stack out of the way so we have a clear background. All right. Next is Day Tripper, released in December 1965. B-side We Can Work It Out. This record came out in 1968. Goody Goody Gumdrops. You can see my sister's name here. This is just like the name of the song and the artist would indicate. This is a bubblegum pop record, song. And that's a genre that exists still to this day in various forms. And it's a song that's very fun and enjoyable to listen to. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous here today. I'm still new at all of this. This is George Harrison's My Sweet Lord. Harrison, one of the Beatles. And this song was released in 1970. It's a huge hit. It's also plagiarized from the song He's So Fine by the Chiffons. A court case was resolved in 1976 that found that to be the case. And if you listen to the two songs, you'll never forget that they are pretty much the same thing, at least the chorus. This one is signed George Harrison. I'm fairly certain that's not really his signature. You can see my sister and her boyfriend sign their names to their records, and I did too, because I tried to do what I thought the cool kids did. Here is In the Year 2525. There's his Dave's signature again. This record used to spook me quite a bit. It's got a kind of eerie sound to it, and it's about life in the future. I still liked it, still do. This one is from 1971. Me and You and a Dog Named Boo. Lobo is not a band, it's a guy. Lobo is his stage name. I'd call this another bubblegum pop rock record. Same label. White Lies, Blue Eyes by Bullet. I'd consider that a lost classic from December 1971. Three Dog Night, hugely popular band in the early 70s. And this record is from 1970. And from this point on, the labels have dates on them. I had to look all those other ones up on Wikipedia. But Carly Simon's, oh sorry, that's the B-side. This is the A-side, You're So Vain, 1972. I was 5, and I remember clearly hearing Carly Simon's voice on this song and just being entranced. And I think that was probably the beginning of my lifelong love of female singers. Here is Sister Golden Hair by America, a mid-70s classic, soft rock. Smokey. I didn't look that one up. Don't know what became of them or him. This was the A-side, though, Living Next Door to Alice. And then what comes next is the very first record that I ever owned. This is Rhinestone Cowboy by Glenn Campbell, given to me by my sister in 1975. This song was a big hit. I listened to the radio a lot besides my sister's music collection, and I must have said that I liked this song, so she very graciously gave me this. Starting with this one, you'll see a lot of them have tape on the labels. This is because when I started having my own record collection, I thought that the thing to do would be to write your name on it, like the ones you've seen before. Only I wrote my full name, first and last. And since this is these videos here, this YouTube channel, this is my first time I've ever gone public in any way online, really, having no other social media accounts or anything else. That's a big enough step for me, and I really wasn't, not at this point anyways, I'm not ready to go by my true name, and instead I'll just be Dr. Neptune. That way I can also keep fighting crime. So Glenn Campbell's Rhinestone Cowboy was the very first record that I owned. John Fogerty's next. 1975. John Fogerty was the singer for Creedence Clearwater Revival, but I didn't know that at that time. I just liked the song. And although my sister did have some Creedence Clearwater Revival in her collection, and I listened to those songs and liked them a lot, I never made the connection until some time later. And this is true for many artists through the years, that I would become aware of them at a point in their careers that when they were new to me, but they often they had a history that I didn't know about before. So John Fogerty was one of those, and I was actually quite shocked several years later, I guess it must have been, to find out that that was the same voice on those CCR records that I liked. So Rockin' All Over the World was one of his solo efforts. This is a novelty record called Mr. Jaws by Dickie Goodman. I had to look up this on Wikipedia too. This is a comedy novelty record, and Dickie Goodman made a number of these, which were what we would probably call today, he used sampling. He would take snippets of popular songs and splice them together along with dialogue to create a funny narrative. This single is called Mr. Jaws, came out in 1975 to capitalize on the popularity of the film. I was not allowed to see this film when it first came out. I was too young. But I heard the record on the radio. I thought it was funny, and that's why I have it. This is available on YouTube. I checked that too. So maybe you can check it out for yourself. It's quite interesting. And in a way, this record comes full circle a little bit with the first record I owned, because one of the lines of dialogue in which Dickie Goodman plays a reporter who actually interviews the shark, Jaws, as well as Quint and a couple of the other major characters. The line that I wrote down is that he asks Quint, when you catch a shark, what do you feel like? And then the answer is the chorus to the Glenn Campbell song, what do you feel like? Like a rhinestone cowboy. Kind of like that. So, Mr. Jaws by Dickie Goodman, a novelty record. This is Who Loves You by the Four Seasons, and it has a disco version on the back. One of the early, I think, examples of that, of a song and then a remix. I loved disco when it came out. Bee Gees. I have Donna Summer. Oh, Donna Summer's next. Here she is. Right, all of those great 70s disco artists and songs I loved. As well as Shaun Cassidy. Shaun Cassidy was on a TV show called The Hardy Boys, and he was also the younger brother of David Cassidy, who I knew from the Partridge Family. And I was a big fan of Shaun Cassidy. I loved anyone who could act and sing. And Do Run Run is actually a cover, a remake of the Crystals song. You can see here, written by Phil Spector, co-written by Phil Spector, who produced the Crystals, the Ronettes, and many other classic groups from the mid-'60s on. For years, I thought that this was Shaun Cassidy's own song. Never knew that it had a history like that. So there's another example, just like with John Fogerty, where I just kind of dove into whatever I was interested in and then later filled in the backstory from wherever I could get the information. And here's another Shaun Cassidy called That's Rock and Roll. You see written by Eric Carmen, who was a solo artist. I believe he did Hungry Eyes on the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. Here's Wings, or Paul McCartney and Wings. Listen to what the man said. They were enormously popular all over the radio. Heard many of their songs as I was a kid. And another example of an artist who I actually didn't know that Paul McCartney was a Beatle or had been a Beatle until sometime after this song came out. My sister was not really a Beatles fan. I think she had one album, Abbey Road perhaps. Otherwise, I would say her favorite group when she was a teenager was the Monkees. So that means that they were one of my favorite groups too. And she had all their albums and pictures of them pasted onto the floor of her bedroom. So when she moved out of the house and I moved into her room, we had to paint over all those pictures of Davy, Peter, Mike, and Mickey. Queen, also enormously popular and one of my favorites as a kid, still now too. I really liked how they mixed hard rock sound with other types of music, orchestral or choirs. Here's another Queen, Fat Bottom Girls. Probably inappropriate in these days, but this was a two-sided single. Bicycle Race was also a single. You can find both of them on their greatest hits. And You're My Best Friend. Oh, okay, now I should explain why there's tape here. I guess maybe I did that. I'm sorry if I repeated myself. I guess I did. Don't want to show you my name. Never mind. This is take 3 of this recording, by the way. One thing after another. So I'm going to stick with this till the end. Queen 39, this is an amazing song. I really like this one a lot. It's kind of an acoustic rock song. Well worth looking into. More Than a Feeling by Boston. I remember clearly watching this record spin around because of its orange label. It stood out a lot. From 1976. Here's Abba. I really went wild with my name on this one and wrote it right over the title of the B-side. It's called I'm a Marionette. Not one of their best works anyway. This is David Gates, who was the singer for Bread. Everything I Need, I think, was their big song. Or I Will Give You Everything. Something like that. Got a very soothing, nice voice, though. And this record, Goodbye Girl, was on the soundtrack to the film of the same name by Neil Simon, which my father took me to see when it came out. Why would a 10-year-old boy want to see a film about a divorced woman and her young child starting over in New York City? I don't know. Maybe I liked the song and that was why I wanted to see the film. Not a bad film. Richard Dreyfuss, I believe, is in it, as well as Marsha Mason. And then my taste started getting a little harder. Here's Kiss, Hard Luck Woman. Mr. Speed. A lot of my friends at this time were way into Kiss. Not me so much. Already by the time Kiss started putting music out, because I had been listening to my sister's music, I felt like Kiss was cartoonish and kind of a joke compared to Pink Floyd and The Who, Alice Cooper, Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, even the Monkees I would have preferred to Kiss. So I never really got into them in the same way that a lot of other people my age did, although I did like those two records. And since then I've kind of come to understand a little bit more about what Kiss was about and what they were doing with their costumes and their theatrics on stage and their music. I would almost put them in an offshoot of the glam rock genre. So I have a little bit more appreciation for Kiss now than I did then, but still not one of my favorites, despite having a few great songs. Spirogyra was a local group from the western New York area, which is where I'm from. Amherst is a suburb of Buffalo. And Spirogyra is a name of some kind of organism, paramecium or some such thing. This was their biggest hit, their most popular song in the area. I believe it got national play too. This is a promotional copy. I don't remember at all how I came to have this. This is one of my favorites of the whole bunch, for its clear, not clear, but it's gold see-through vinyl. The song is Cherry Baby by Stars. I don't know what to say about it other than that it kind of reminds me, I guess, of Bay City Rollers in its sound. Rock 6 times. All right, and then got the Rolling Stones. So I had listened to the Stones from a very early age. My sister had Hot Rocks, which is their greatest hits album, and I listened to that over and over again. And so I remember when Some Girls came out, which had Miss You and Beast of Burden. I was really excited. That was in 1978, because this was new music from a band that I really liked and knew a fair amount about at that time. This was probably one of the first instances of that, new music by a band that I was really familiar with and a big fan of. So I got both their singles, which are Beast of Burden and Miss You from Some Girls. And then the B-sides are also both great songs, Faraway Eyes and When the Whip Comes Down, all on their Some Girls album, which is one of their very best. This song, Faraway Eyes, is basically a parody of a country song, which they did a couple times in their career. I think Dead Flowers is another one from Sticky Fingers. And even at that age, I was able to recognize the satire, that they were making fun of the genre. But of course, the Stones were respectful of American music, so there's a kind of an interesting element there, where they are both mocking as well as paying tribute to the genre. But Mick Jagger's vocals really give it away, the way that he drawls in this exaggerated Southern accent. And it's a pretty funny story that they tell, too, in the song. Joe Walsh, Life's Been Good. I did know who he was from listening to the Beatles. So when he came out with this solo song, I loved it. The B-side is Theme from Boat Weirdos. This one I really went nuts on, signing my name all over. But it's Bonnie Tyler's It's a Heartache in 1978. When this song came out, I thought that it was Rod Stewart, who I knew. I knew his music. And if you listen to Bonnie Tyler, not just this song, but many of her songs, you may find the same similarity. And then, of course, later she had the huge mega hit of Total Eclipse of the Heart. Here's my first Van Halen record. Van Halen would become my favorite band in high school. I went to see them twice.